You don't actually feel lost. If you were lost, you would be searching. You would be trying new things, asking different questions, moving in different directions. But that's not what this feels like. This feels like standing still inside your own life. Like everything is functioning on the outside, but something internally feels muted, flat, distant. And the scariest part is you can't clearly explain what's wrong, because technically nothing is. That's not being lost, that's being disconnected. Disconnection doesn't happen in one dramatic moment. It happens quietly, gradually. It happens when you learn that certain versions of you work better than others. The calm version, the responsible one, the productive one, the strong one, the one who doesn't complicate things with too many feelings. Over time, you start leading with those parts. You refine them, you rely on them, and they reward you. People trust you, depend on you, respect you. You become stable, capable, reliable. But in strengthening those parts, other parts slowly get quieter. Maybe you stopped expressing certain emotions because they felt inconvenient. Maybe you learned that being overwhelmed didn't change anything, so you became composed instead. Maybe you realized early on that being strong kept things steady, so you stayed that way. None of this makes you fake. It makes you adaptive. You adjusted to what was required. You built traits that helped you function and survive. The problem is, survival skills don't always update themselves when the environment changes. What once protected you can later restrict you. When you're disconnected, it doesn't look dramatic. You wake up, you handle your responsibilities, you respond to messages, you show up where you're supposed to. You make logical decisions. From the outside, you look fine. But internally, there's a subtle sense of watching yourself go through the motions. Conversations feel slightly rehearsed. Achievements feel less satisfying than they should. Rest doesn't fully recharge you. You're present, but not fully inside the experience. It's like there's a thin layer of distance between you and your own life. That distance forms every time you override yourself, when you say yes but mean no, when you're tired but push through anyway, when you're hurt but tell yourself it's not a big deal, when you need reassurance but decide to be rational instead. Each override seems small, mature even, but over time, those small dismissals send a powerful internal message. Your feelings are secondary to your function, and eventually your system adapts by lowering the volume on those feelings altogether. This is why you might feel flat rather than overwhelmed. You're not constantly breaking down, you're composed. You regulate quickly. You solve problems efficiently. You don't spiral easily. That sounds like growth, and part of it is. But there's a difference between emotional regulation and emotional disconnection. Regulation means you feel something and process it in a healthy way. Disconnection means you stop fully accessing what you feel because it's easier to manage life that way. Over time, you may start identifying almost entirely with your functional traits, the achiever, the stable one, the logical one, the strong one. And those identities aren't wrong, they're just incomplete. When identity becomes too narrow, you lose access to the rest of your internal range, the part that feels deeply without needing to justify it, the part that wants comfort without earning it, the part that doesn't always have an answer. The more you lean into performance and control, the less space there is for softness and uncertainty. Reconnection doesn't begin with a dramatic life change. It begins with awareness. Awareness of when you override yourself. Awareness of the tension in your body that you've been ignoring. Awareness of how often you default to "I'm fine," without checking if that's true. The first step isn't expression, it's recognition. Simply noticing that there is distance between what you feel and what you show is already movement in the right direction. The next step is allowing small truths to exist without immediately correcting them. If you're tired, instead of analyzing whether you deserve to be tired, you acknowledge it. If you're overwhelmed, instead of strategizing your way out of it instantly, you sit with it for a moment. If you don't know what you want, you let that uncertainty exist without rushing to pick the most practical option. These are subtle shifts, but they rebuild something important: internal trust. Internal trust forms when you respond to your own signals with respect, when you rest because you're exhausted instead of because you've earned it, when you say no without constructing a perfect explanation, when you admit you're unsure instead of pretending to be certain. Every time you honor a small internal cue, you close the gap between who you are and who you present, and that gap is where disconnection lives. It's important to understand that this isn't about becoming less capable. It's not about abandoning responsibility or rejecting strength. It's about expanding your definition of what strength includes. Strength isn't constant composure. It isn't endless productivity. It isn't always having the solution. Real strength is flexibility. It's being able to hold things together when necessary and also let yourself be held when needed. It's the ability to feel deeply without losing stability. If you've been operating from a performance identity for a long time, slowing down will feel unfamiliar. You might feel restless when you're not fixing something. You might feel uncomfortable when you express a need. That discomfort doesn't mean you're regressing. It means you're stepping outside a pattern that once kept you safe. Growth at this stage isn't loud. It's subtle. It's choosing alignment over autopilot in small daily moments. You're not lost. You haven't failed to figure life out. You've just been prioritizing function over feeling for so long that your internal signals have faded into the background. The goal isn't to destroy the version of you that works. It's to reintegrate the parts that went quiet. The curious part, the unsure part, the emotionally honest part, the part that doesn't always want to be the strong one. When you start listening again, even gently, something shifts. The flatness softens. Decisions feel less mechanical. Conversations feel more real. You feel more present inside your own body, not because everything is suddenly perfect, but because you're no longer standing outside yourself trying to manage the image. You're participating again. Disconnection feels like being lost because you can't clearly define what's missing. But what's missing isn't direction, it's access. Access to your own internal world without immediately editing it for efficiency or control. And the more you practice that access, the more clarity returns naturally. You don't need a new identity. You don't need a dramatic reinvention. You need reconnection. Small, consistent moments where you respond to yourself as honestly as you respond to everyone else. That's how the fog lifts. That's how you stop feeling like a stranger in your own life. Not by searching harder, but by coming back to the parts of you that were never gone, just unheard.